Sweet. All right. That was actually on the ball. So apologies in advance. I woke up yesterday with a severe sore throat and fighting off a cold. So I'm well drugged up right now.
So that means, Chris, you'll never know what he'll say.
All right.
This could be interesting.
All right. Here we go on 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to the show. It is StreetPX. My name is Casper.
And this is Jim Watkins. How you doing, Casper?
Doing great. It is so nice to be back.
It's been a while, man.
It's been a long time. This whole new seasonal thing is weird, man.
Yeah, it is. But we've been busy. We've been really busy lately. So
to be honest with you, I think this is the best direction for our show because I'm sure you people out there, have difficulty keeping up with us whenever the episodes are like 2 hours long and coming out twice a month. That gets tricky.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So we figured we'd aim for the old sitcom approach and just do our stuff seasonally, which this makes season number 4. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it, man. It's been a while, man. We've been doing it. You doing it.
Yeah.
And you have been instrumental in this whole thing, man. I tell you. You've done a great job.
I appreciate that.
And you got new equipment, too.
I do. I got a new Shiny, which is probably, it's twofold why I probably sound different right now. I got a new microphone, and I'm sick as a dog right now.
That's why you're getting germs on the new mic, man.
I'm getting, yes. No, that's just so I can be, it's like a vaccination for my mic.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
So
make it immune to the germ. Okay, yeah, you got it.
We'll try it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. But yes, welcome back, everybody. It is September 25th. And we're kicking this off with a fantastic interview with the one and only Chris Suspect out of D.C., And I had the honor of being able to catch up with Chris while he was visiting in San Francisco about a month ago, and he was kind enough to rejoin us here in the StreetPX studio and talk a bit more about his life, his work, and the punk rock scene, which is something we really get into along this episode. Some really fascinating conversation there.
It was great, man. I tell you.
Yeah. But before we get into that, we have a little bit of riffing and some pluggage to do. But my first question to you, Jim, is how has your summer been, man?
It was extremely busy. Like I said, I've been doing everything but street photography. It's like
funny how that works.
Yeah, I know it is. It is like, what am I doing here today? But it's been one of those things. But I've been enjoying it.
Keeps you busy.
I've had a great time. And I'm one of those people that need some time off to grow. And I think
rest.
Exactly. I think I've done that. So we'll see how it works.
By the way, how you coming along with the that list of parks for San Francisco? What number are you on?
I'm about let's say 40% of the way done.
Wow.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, listeners, when it comes to San Francisco, the Parks and Recreation, the amount of parks that they own and what his project is focused on is going and documenting these parks. There is 300 of these things?
220 parks and recreational facilities that the park district has asked me to shoot. So
yes,
that's been a big thing. But I didn't do that this summer. I had a whole bunch of other stuff to do this summer. So now I've got to go back and catch up with the park project. It's like, oh my God. But it's been a blast. So how about you?
Yeah.
How have you spent your summer?
I've spent my summer moving into some new digs. The official Casper domain and StreetPX studio has relocated to Oakland, California, which I could not be more proud to announce, especially with the fact that we actually have a proper tried and true studio space now. Believe that.
Oh,
It's kind of freaky. I'm sitting in here right now, and it's coming together. It's evolving. My goal is to be able to use this space, obviously, for better sound control and be able to offer our listeners out there a better experience. But also, I'm looking forward to maybe putting together a YouTube channel, expanding on StreetPX to be a little bit more visual, because, I mean, we do talk about photos, so why not?
That's right.
I've even started a space right here behind me that's going to be our backdrop / shrine to listeners and guests. And I've already began putting up prints and knickknacks and things that have been sent to us from our listeners from StreetPX Nation out there. That's going to be littering this wall. So on all of our YouTube videos, you're going to be able to see this. And if you're listening to this podcast, you can go take a look at streetpx.com for the show notes on this episode, and I'll throw in some teaser photos of what you can expect.
Oh, nice.
But beyond that, I wish I was doing more street photography this summer, but alas, I'm in the same boat. A lot of busyness, a lot of regular day job work. So my street photography kind of took a back seat for a bit.
Yeah, I know life has just slapped us in the face.
Ah, damn life. Always asking for money. But yeah, that said, I guess we can go ahead and just jump right into some of the pluggage here. And the first one actually ties in with our shrine to our listeners out there. And that is to say that we are doing the secret print exchange again. If you are a listener and have been a listener of StreetPX, and better yet, been a participant, it's going to be relatively the same. As of right now, the deadline for signups is going to be November 30th. That way it gives me a chance to be able to link everybody up with their secret print exchange partner from somewhere in the world. And you can find out more information on streetpx.com. There's going to be a button that you can click, and then you just put in your name, address, all that fun information, and then we'll throw you into the magical spinny wheel of randomness and link you up with somebody. That way you can send a print and receive a wicked print this holiday season.
Oh man, that's always fun. It's always great to get those prints in the mail and just put them on your wall. Oh man, I love it.
I know. Last year was offered up an interesting change. We had a lot more international participants last year in 2017. We also had a number of members send books and zines around, which it's not something that we require. It's a print exchange, in the end. But some of our listeners like to go above and beyond and share something a little bit more than just a print, and that's cool with us.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it's cool with the lucky recipient of these items too. So, but one of my favorite things was seeing. I forget. I don't want to mess this up, but I do remember one of our participants we all share selfies of one another with holding these prints, and it's so neat to see your print ending up in somewhere like Amsterdam or Bangkok, and somebody being on the other side of the world appreciating that art. That's so cool to us.
Oh yes, great.
Yep. But yeah, this is your opportunity to join in. So yeah, go to streetpx.com, click that button, sign up, and let's send some shit around the world.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to give a shout out to Katie Jet Walls. She was a former guest of the show, and she has come out with a new magazine called, I think it's an e-magazine called Confluence Magazine. And I want you guys to check that out. It's confluencemag.com. And she just started this, so the first issue is out. Check it out. Give her some love. Let her know what you think about it.
And actually quite apt, because Katie, she's out of Washington D.C. too, right?
I think she is. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that is Chris Suspect, our guest today, is Washington D.C. So we got a lot of D.C. love on our opening episode.
There you go. That's right. Yeah, and I love D.C. too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the things in DC, not so much love, but it's a cool town.
Well, yeah, there's some people that live there now that I'm not. But the town itself is cool.
We kid for the most part. But that actually brings me to a point I want to make sure I get out there. Chris Suspect is not just a photographer, but he's also a teacher. And before we get into this interview, I want everybody to take this opportunity for two things. If you enjoy taking workshops, or at least maybe never taken a workshop in your life, this might be a great opportunity. Chris is offering a San Miguel Day of the Dead photographic workshop that's going to be going on in San Miguel, Mexico. That's going to be October 29th through November 4th. And talking with him today, we come to realize that there is about 3 or 4 slots still available. So if this is something you want to do a destination style workshop, this is a perfect opportunity with one hell of a great teacher.
Yep.
And the more information about that workshop can be found at mspfworkshops.com. That link will also be in the show notes too. So don't hurt yourself trying to run to a pad and paper and get that. Additionally, speaking of the Miami Street Photography Festival, that's coming up very, very soon. It's right around the corner, coming here in December. But to all of you out there that enjoy submitting to contests or have thought about it but never have submit to a contest, this is a great opportunity as well. Now, the deadline is literally within a few days, so you want to get on this immediately. Just head over to the Miami Street Photography Festival's website, and they have a number of different categories as it usually goes: series, single image, but I believe it's the December 6th through 9th. So all finalists are going to have their images on exhibit there in Miami during the entirety of this festival, as well as online, and a lot of great prizes and such. So definitely jump on this if you get the chance.
Yeah, and the deadline date is November 1st. So definitely.
No. October 1st.
I'm sorry, October 1st. October
1st.
Cut that out.
StreetPX, the home of misinformation.
I would have gotten a lot of people mad at me.
You would have, yes. Particularly probably Miami Street Photography whenever they start receiving a whole bunch of pictures later in the month.
October 1st.
Awesome. And last but not least, definitely we want to throw some love to our wonderful sponsor, Glass Key Photo. Yeah. This is San Francisco's full-service camera shop with multitude of film, paper, chemicals, prints, used cameras, camera repairs, and generally awesome people when it comes to Gordon and Matt. They are open 7 days a week from 12 to 6. You can find their location at 1230 Sutter Street. And speaking of Glass Key Photo, it would be a disservice if I did not bring up the fact that they have Photo Devils zine and book fair coming up very soon. It's right around the corner. It's going to be on Saturday, October 27th from 12 to 6. More information can be found at glasskeyphoto.com. But if you're a zine fan, you like making them, selling them, or you just appreciate getting some new art, this is a great place to check out. So definitely go and do that.
Nice.
Sweet. Okay. Plugs aside, go to streetpx.com. You want to help us out, go to patreon.com/streetpx. You want to buy some t-shirts, go to the website. It's all there. Enough with this. Let's get into this interview and kick off this 4th season of StreetPX. Excellent. And we are here with Chris Suspect to kick off our new season 4 of StreetPX. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, welcome to the show, man.
Yes, all kinds of, it's StreetPX, so there ain't no telling what we might get into, so fair warning. But yeah, I know recently I had the opportunity to meet you while you were traveling here to the West Coast here in San Francisco, which I definitely want to get to here in a little bit. But you are a photographer out of Washington, D.C., right?
Yes, I actually live right outside in a little town called Hyattsville. It's the first suburb of D.C., but for everybody else in the world, it's basically Washington, D.C. It's walking distance from my house. So.
Well, yes, and actually, I was doing a little lookup on that. Apparently, that's where Jim Henson is from too.
Yes, that is correct. We have Jim Henson. We have, and I forget this guy's name, but he won the Nobel Prize a couple years ago for physics. Is also here. We also have a very famous African American painter named David Driscoll. And if you're into independent music, punk rock music, Ian Svenonius is also from Hyattsville, Maryland. And Sean Brown, who's the original singer for the Discord band Dag Nasty, is also from Hyattsville. So there's a good artistic history here.
So you guys are breeding them well in that little suburb.
Yes.
I am curious. Do you guys have a Kermit the Frog statue?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
we actually do. It just got built. I think last year in this park, which is right down the street from my house, called Magruder Park. So there is some Kermits in a statue.
Wait a minute, Casper, how did you know that?
I didn't. I was really hoping that was going to be an affirmative. I was literally throwing a Hail Mary just then.
Oh my God.
Yeah, if we did this a year ago, I don't think it would have been there. But now it's so we do have that now.
That's so awesome. And it's funny, too, because where I'm from, Southern Illinois, I grew up outside of Metropolis, which they got a big, giant Superman statue because that's where the Superman originally came from. And I forget the town, but just a little north of that is where Popeye was originally from. So there's a big ass Popeye statue. So, our little towns, we got to like grasp onto those novel things wherever we can.
Yeah, we all need a claim to fame, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
this is true. but yeah, so you're out there in Hyattsville. But from looking at it, looks like you were actually born in the Philippines.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. Were you born and raised there, or is it just kind of like an in and out, and your parents moved elsewhere?
So my parents were with the Foreign Service, and they were stationed in the Philippines. And I'm adopted, so apparently, though my original mother was a nun who got pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And so she gave me up for adoption, and I guess they contacted the embassy or something and was like, hey, does anybody want a kid? And that's how that happened.
That must have been an interesting life, though, growing up with diplomat parents.
Yeah, very much so. So, I was just a baby in the Philippines. And then I guess we came back to the Washington, D.C. area. And then we went to Denmark, where I attended kindergarten. And so for some reason, I was able to speak Danish and French better than English. So when I got back to the U.S., I got held back a grade. My English wasn't as good. And and then we went to Thailand, which was awesome. Lived in Bangkok. Lived in Moscow when it was communist. And and then London. And then in between all those times, we would take extended trips to places like Morocco or Paris or Helsinki, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like, as far as all of these elements and all of these things come together, really was a recipe for what you was to become down the line. It gives you an interesting, unique perspective on the world.
It certainly does. I find I'm probably a little bit more open than most Americans to cultural differences, social differences. And also, I'm not afraid to travel and go have new experiences. So, I'm always saying yes to things that especially like intrigue me. Like I was just recently in Romania. This is my second time, but I got invited to present and give a workshop at a festival called VSLO there, and that was a fantastic experience. But yeah, and I've been to Tbilisi, Georgia for photography as well. They have a great festival there called the Colbert Tbilisi Photo Festival. So it's just been it's been kind of a lot of fun, and I always kind of relish going to new places. So,
Jim.
Nope, go ahead.
Oh, okay, no worries. You looked like you were wanting to say something.
No. I was just taking this all in because I'm a big traveler too, and I loved these places that you're talking about. I wish I was there. I would love to go there and see, just to photograph those places. Man, I tell you. Oh.
Well, the difference in cultures, the difference in just way of life, I think applies very well to street photography, or at least just the human interest of photography in general.
Most definitely.
Have you found great differences between all of these places, and if so, like what would be the most glaring differences that you found?
Well, when you go into like Eastern Europe or the Caucasus or the Balkans, it's not as westernized as, let's say, places like Belgium or England or Ireland or what have you. So it's really nice not seeing a McDonald's or a KFC on like every corner. But what's interesting, especially in a lot of these places that were once dominated by the Soviet Union, you have like this kind of generational split between younger people and older people who remembered what it was like to live under communism. And then the younger kids really kind of have no idea. And the architecture is sort of like that as well, because you've got all this kind of brutalist era style Soviet architecture buildings. And then you have all this new kind of development that's a little more, I would say, Western influence. So there's really this juxtaposition in a lot of these cities over there. So that it's really kind of an interesting thing to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Romania, I'm working on a project where I'm kind of documenting. What I'm trying to do is juxtapose like the freedom of the kids or youth there that have not grown up under communism, and juxtapose it with some of that architecture and stuff. I wouldn't really call this a street photography project. I mean, I'm always thinking street photography when I'm shooting, looking for those techniques or cliches or whatever, and the fun stuff that we all look for in street photography, and trying but mixing that with kind of portraits or maybe some stage shots or landscapes that kind of help clarify that juxtaposition. So yeah.
I do love your journey into the absurd. I was reading something that had described your work as that, and I thought it was so on the nose, because your unique eye, your ability to see something that is so surreal in otherwise basic, boring life is outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
Now, as you go out looking for these absurd moments, is this something that you're conscious of, or is it just a holy shit whenever you look left or right?
I'm always looking for weird stuff. So, but that really comes after, a lot of trial and failure when I started photography, and then started, studying contemporaries and the works of masters. And basically, I'm trying not to repeat what other people have done and kind of bring in my own thing. But you can, I don't think you can really do that unless you know what has been done before. So like if I see a situation, I'm like, man, that looks like an Alex Webb shot, or that looks like an Elliot Erwitt kind of thing. I'm like, how can I take advantage of this opportunity but make it my own or make it different? And that's kind of like my thought process. I mean, it's instantaneous, right? So my brain's like a catalog of all these photos that I've seen before, and it helps me to recognize potential situations and ways to frame something to make it kind of weird or absurd or what have you. But try to put my own spin or take on it. Yeah.
Now, Chris, you have a very interesting story. You were a punk rocker back in the day.
Oh yes, I still am.
You still are. Huh? Talk about that a little bit.
So I can. So let's see. I started off the first record that I ever bought was in Helsinki, Finland, and I bought Devo, "We Are Not Men." And I bought the Clash's second album, "Give 'Em Enough Rope." And, nice. And I just really bought them based on the album covers. And actually, let me precede that, because I do recall we were sitting in the kitchen, and I guess there was an article about the Sex Pistols in the New York Times, and this is when we were living in Moscow. But we would get the papers from America at the embassy, and so my mom was like, I guess reading an article about the Sex Pistols, and she was like, Chris, you wouldn't listen to any music like that, would you? And I was like, oh, of course not, Mom. And I think that's what made me kind of want to go. I couldn't buy the Sex Pistols, but I was like, there's got to be other bands like that. And so that's how I picked up Devo on a whim and Clash on a whim. So
okay.
That's so anyway, so yeah, I started off with those two things, and then I moved back to DC. And went to school here in the States. And then there were some kids in my school, skateboarder guys, that were into punk as well. And I discovered, Minor Threat and Black Flag and that sort of stuff in school. And it was great because we lived in DC. And so I think by the time I was 14, I went to my first show. And that was... TSOL from California and Naked Reagan from Chicago. And I was 14, and my dad dropped me off at this place called West Hall, which is now the new 930 Club here in DC. And and it was scary. It was in a really bad part of town back then in DC. There are people like selling acid and to people in line going into the club, and it was just kind of nuts. And so, and then that was my first show. And then my second show, which is sort of crazy too, I saw it at HB Woodlawn High School. And it was a band called Mission Impossible and Lunch Meat. And Mission Impossible was David Grohl's first band. So he was playing drums for them.
Nice.
So, but, of course, nobody knew who he was back then. And and so and those were my first two shows. I never got the chance to see Minor Threat because they broke up about the same year I was able to go to shows. But then I basically saw everybody else from that whole DC history. So
uh-huh.
Now that inspiration moved you to picking up a bass and starting to do your own music. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, no, I didn't. All I did was go to these shows and basically drink underage. And that works too. and skateboard, So I was a big skateboarder, and so, but I was just I was a participant in the fact I was in the audience, but I wasn't a creator, if you will. It wasn't after I got out of college and moved back here that I wound up meeting Kent Stax, who was in the band Scream, and then some other folks, and we started a band called the Suspects, and that's hence where my last name comes from. And and so then, and that was in like 93 when we started the Suspects, and we basically, there was no punk rock going on in DC at all at that time. I think right before that, Bikini Kill was going strong, but they ended around that time, and really there's just a big void. But no one was playing that kind of music. No one was going to those shows. We basically played around for a year and a half to like nobody. And it wasn't until we played in Baltimore where there was like 10 or 12 punk kids at this place called The Loft, who then kind of helped spread the word in their networks. And then we started getting 20 people show up in DC. And then and then we put out a 7-inch when we were could only draw like 20 people. But then it wound up, Tim Yohannan from Maximum Rock and Roll, which was out in Berkeley, California, wound up loving the 7-inch and put us on the front cover of Maximum Rock and Roll, and that pretty much like skyrocketed us.
Wow!
Holy shit!
And then we wound up being able to draw like a couple hundred to like 600-700 people at our shows. So
wow. I bet that was an experience. How do you describe what that feeling of being on the stage and playing to a crowd of that size, especially with the energy that comes with punk rock?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's kind of like you hit this Zen mode where it's like you're not even thinking about what you're playing. It's just like the whole room and the audience all kinds of clicks and comes together into this really kind of powerful, all-encompassing moment.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So, which, by the way, to swing this back to photography, it's the same kind of feeling I get when I come across a scene on the street where it's like my camera is not really like a tool that I think about anymore. It's just part of me. And it's the same way when you're like playing bass and everything's going great and you forget about, it's not, your hands are just on auto, pilot basically. And it's kind of, it's a very similar thing. There's a book called, I think it's a Zen of Archery. It was one of Cartier-Bresson's favorite books. And it was basically about this guy trying to learn the art of archery and how difficult it was. And it wasn't until like, you didn't really get to the Zen part of it until like your mind was able to let go of all the tools that you're using and everything just comes together at once. And so it's the same exact kind of thing for me. Like if you're playing an instrument or you're shooting a camera, it's like you learn your tools and all this, but then you got to get to a point where you forget about all of that stuff. And it's just really being in the moment and being part of it.
Interesting. Now let me ask you this: Did your punk rock experience influence what you actually see? As a photographer.
Not at all.
No.
Now I will say that because I did the first book that I put out called Suspect Device. Was really all about photographing the punk scene here in DC from like around 2010 or 2011 to 2014. And that, so in my mind, like the one advantage I had by playing in a punk band and going to shows all those years is that I knew like what to expect and kind of what I wanted to capture. Like I didn't really care about who was in what band or anything. I wanted to capture like the energy, but then couple that with what I've learned through street photography and framing and trying to make stuff look weird or what have you. It really kind of gives it like a different, more surreal edge because I knew what to look for in a photograph, but I also knew what to expect in a punk show and how to photograph it. So,
that's key.
Yeah. Robert Capa has that quote, if your photos aren't good enough, you're not getting close enough. If you're photographing punk rock, if your photos aren't good enough, you're not getting punched in the face enough.
And it sure as hell looks like you took a couple of fists to the chin on your imagery there, because the amount of emotion and energy, particularly out of your Suspect Device project, I was looking into that, and looking at these images makes me anxiety ridden.
Yeah. So, I going to punk shows when I was like 14, 15, 16 or whatever, it was all about kind of this, you'd go to because this is back in the 80s when punk was really dangerous. There was no commercial form of it. And by dangerous is dangerous on multiple levels. A lot of the times, we're playing, the bands were playing at, very sketchy venues in really bad parts of town because that's the only place that would allow these bands to play. And then, you had all these kids, and it was all new back then, with mohawks and skinheads and all that. And there wasn't any racist skinheads in DC, but there were, skinheads. They were just basically copying what they saw in England, right?
Exactly.
And, but it was, it was frightening, man. And, then the pit, and then, there would be fights between kids. So it was like this whirlwind or tsunami of just like energy and chaos. And, I was always looking at photos of bands and like fanzines and stuff, and none of them really, to me, seemed to kind of capture that energy. I mean, occasionally you might see one, but not on any consistent basis. So when I decided to kind of go back and explore that scene, I've always been in touch with it, but I started going and photographing the younger bands, and it wasn't like, as I said, it wasn't about the bands or the cool kids or the famous people in the scene. It was all about trying to kind of capture the energy I felt when I was like 14 and getting that, the danger and the tsunami or hurricane of just stuff going on. So, yeah.
one of the images that really stuck out to me was, and I'm going to try my best here to describe, but it's obviously of a crowd surfing situation, but you catch the girl's eyes right at the bottom base of the frame, looking through, like looking through all the images. That one just leaped out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I'm just curious how that one came to be.
Oh, well, that's actually really interesting, and how that setup happened for that. So the band, the guy that's upside down screaming in the mic, I believe his name is Lee, and he's a singer for a band called Trash Talk from Sacramento, California. And they were playing Baltimore, I think, with a band called Off, which is from the lineage of like the Circle Jerks, right? So, but Trash Talk was just, and I'd shot them a year before, I think, too, as well. But what's really kind of crazy about that is like I wasn't using my Leica at the time. I didn't have one. I was using a Canon 60D. And what I did was I set up remote triggered flashes on the trussels of the lights in the club. I got there early. So I would trigger those. And that's how, the lighting and all that came to be. So, I just saw this, so this guy, Lee, was like crawling on the pipes of the club and then just was kind of hung himself upside down on these pipes and was just, singing, and, people were kind of holding him up so he doesn't fall. And I just ran into the pit and just took just got one lucky shot, I guess, there.
It's a brilliant setup. It definitely goes to show that it pays to plan and get permission or not, at least access.
Yeah, I didn't even ask for permission. I just got up there and did it. I mean, you can kind of get away with that stuff.
Did you really?
Punk shows, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, punk shows are going to be a little bit less regulated than like a Beyonce step on your phone, no one can shoot pictures situation.
Yeah.
I mean, the punk scene was probably begging for some type of a visual, a promotions of some sort. So I figure photos is probably more acceptable in a situation like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's really, I guess once people like Beyonce get to a certain level, you want to be represented as well as you can, so they probably don't really like to see just poor photos of themselves out there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I can get that. Yeah.
So, but that's so far removed from punk rock, where punk rock is like just anything goes, right? Mm-hmm. And and I don't know if you've ever shot concerts before, but for the big bands, they'll let the photographers come in and just shoot the first 3 songs, mainly because the performers don't want to be all sweaty or worn out looking. And to me, it's like, that's not when you want to shoot them. I want to shoot them when they are all like,
right,
sweaty, and you know what I'm saying? Because that's
you want the real life.
Yeah, and I can't even go shoot big concerts because it's just like you're so far removed. In punk rock, you're actually you have the opportunity to be right there on the frickin' stage with the band, and no one cares. And oftentimes I do get on the stage. I mean, the stage may not even be a stage, or maybe like a couple feet high or whatever. But I have no problem doing that. And no one ever seems to mind or care.
You ever had a chance to shoot and crowd surf at the same time?
No, that's very difficult. But I have been in the pit many times with the camera. So.
Yeah. So, see, that would be a great time to have that Leica. Anybody gets near you, it's game over. You take a hit from a Leica in the cheek, you can pretty much decimate the entire pit.
Well, actually, the scary thing is like when you're trying to frame something and put the Leica up against your eye, and it kind of has that sharp corner. So my biggest fear was getting hit in the face by a boot or somebody's shoulder or whatever, and just kind of dig into my eye. I always visualized. And it's never happened, but visualize like coming away with a big black eye and blood streaming down my face because my camera caught the corner of my eye. But thank God it hasn't happened. So,
but see, at that point, you would look like you'd just come from a punk concert. So,
yeah, it would have hurt. All I'm saying is it would have hurt a lot.
True that. So let's go ahead and circle back here. It's fascinating to hear about your background in the punk music scene, but I want to talk a little bit more about your photography in general and kind of where that started to evolve from. Because I know you yourself, you don't consider yourself a professional photographer, at least in the sense that you know that's your money making ordeal. You have a day job, and I find it fascinating that you're one of those that likes to treat photography as more of a passion than making it a career. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So it seems to me like anything that I've kind of touched creatively, I can turn into money basically. So I started off, picking up a video camera, I did that before photography. And I wound up, I guess getting pretty good at it. And then I was able to, get hired for jobs, and edit projects and things of that nature. And any kind of thing that I wanted to do myself creatively, it was just like, it just kind of sucked because it was like I'd be, filming, let's say, some conference or something like that, and then have to edit all down. And the last thing I wanted to do was come home and edit my own projects. Same thing like when I was in The Suspects, we started our own record label, and we kind of, did that out of necessity and wound up putting out like 20 records, not just by us, but by different bands as well. And, I wound up being more of an accountant and calling people on the phone and asking for, hey, where's the money, man? We sent you, 20 records or what have you. And it was just soul sucking, right? And I got into putting out a record because I liked doing the graphic design and the stuff that goes into making the recording, the playing of it. I did not get into it to be counting beans. So when I started photography, I was like, this is something I'm just going to keep to myself and just do as a hobby. I don't want to do it for money. I don't care about the money. I make money in other ways. So that's kind of been like my guiding principle is, I'm just going to shoot what I want to shoot, do projects that I want to do. And I'm not going to try to hustle to make money, like, shoot a wedding or try to be a photojournalist or anything like that. So I've always purposely have kept that separate. I mean, with that said, I have made a little bit of money from either, selling some books or selling prints or doing workshops, which I actually really like doing because I find those creative. But the goal is not to make a living doing it at all. The goal is to be the best photographer I can be and just be strictly about photography, and other people can handle the money or the publishing of a book or what have you, because I don't want to I don't want to publish my own books and then have to be calling people up going, hey, I sent you 20 copies, where's my money?
Yep,
that's not what I got into photography for. So
I think too few people understand what comes with being a professional photographer, capital P. They seek out this dream job, and they see the glitz and the glamour and, quote unquote glitz and glamour of being a photographer, but they overlook the annoying parts, that the business side of things, which in reality is well over 60% of it all. I mean, your shooting is a small fraction of what you're actually doing, and unless you have an inclination when it comes to accounting or marketing or just being, for lack of a better way of putting it, have that asshole streak to be a business person.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just be the nice guy and the nice business owner. That doesn't work in that world.
No. I mean, that doesn't work in any world, honestly, if you're...
True that.
So, but I mean, and I'm not really concerned about being nice or not. I just want to stay focused on the creative side of it and leave the business side of it to somebody else to do.
But even with that, you still have your passion still leads you to opportunities, and some expected and some completely unexpected, which I do want to ask you about. We talked about it whenever you were here, but the Stephen Colbert situation.
Oh, yeah, I was going to talk about that. I have to find out about that one.
That is wonderful. Talk about that a little bit.
So that's crazy. That might be the pinnacle of my photography career so far. Actually, I wouldn't make that the pinnacle, but it's a pretty good high point. But yeah, so I went to see these friends of mine play that I've known for a long time, and they're in a punk band called Cop Stabber, and it was just like a regular Saturday night, and I wasn't even planning on shooting, so I just brought my like Ricoh camera with me, which I always bring with me because it's light, and we were at this bar called Slash Run in DC, and this interesting guy walks in playing air guitar, walking through the door, with the mustache. He's just an interesting character. And that the first shot I took, I saw him coming through the door as I was going outside, and I took the shot right then and there because it just seemed so interesting. And yeah, and then after seeing him in the club, and just he was with some other people. They were coming from a wedding. I'm like, man, that guy looks so familiar. So I asked one of the people that were with the wedding party, I was like, who is this guy? And they're like, oh, that's Ty Cobb. That's Trump's former lawyer. And I thought they were, BSing me. So I went on Google. I was like, Ty Cobb, Punk's lawyer. I'm like, oh yeah, that is him, man. I knew I recognized him, but I couldn't like place it. So so I just, I basically I wanted to shoot him because it was such an interesting character. And I don't think any of the shots I got of him were really great, but it's because who he was. So I posted on Facebook the next day. I was like, former Trump lawyer Ty Cobb at the recent Cop Stabber show, and I guess this woman from the Washington Post saw it on Facebook or Twitter. I also posted it on Twitter, and she like called me up immediately and was like, hey, can we use your photos for a story? And I was like, sure. And she asked me a bunch of questions, and then about what happened, and then my Facebook feed or post was kind of going wild with comments from the singer of the band, who was just kind of making jokes about it. But that became interesting too because it gave a little more context and background to what was going on, and and so then the Post published it online. And then the next day they published it at the top fold of the style section. And then it wound up getting kind of repurposed by other media outlets like Vice and Spin Magazine.
Taking on a life of its own.
Yeah. And and then just when I thought it was kind of petering out on Thursday, I got a call from the Colbert Show, and they were like, hey, we want to do a segment with these photos. So... And that it was great, man. And they paid me to as well, and really well. It was really nice.
Yeah, you living the dream, man.
Yeah, so I mean that's all serendipity, right? So it's always a good idea to always carry your camera with me, because I really didn't feel like shooting that night. I was just like, I'll just bring my camera. I've shot Cop Stabber a bunch, and I just kind of wanted to go and not be the photographer for the show, just be hanging out with my friends and whatnot. Yeah. So it always pays to have a good camera with you.
When you're a photographer, even when you want to go out and enjoy yourself, you just can't get away from it.
Well, I do enjoy photography, so I am, it's just like I didn't want to feel like pressure to like, I'm going to shoot the band, then I'll, go edit the photos and send them to you the next day or whatever. I was just like,
right. But
a lot of stuff that I shoot is very random. Like I'll go out at night to a bar or whatever, but I always have the Ricoh with me, and occasionally situations pop up and it's like, boom, I used to always carry the Leica with the off-camera flash with me. But it's really, the Leica, as small as it is, still heavy as a brick. And it's like, once I kind of discovered a Ricoh, it was, fairly cheap, like $600 for these things. And then seeing other photographers who had shot with it, most famously Daido Moriyama, it was just like, let's see what this camera can do. And, I was never a big fan of on-camera flash, but it does have its own aesthetics that have worked for a lot of different folks, especially in the fashion industry. And it was like, let's see what I can do with this. And so I've been, using that camera quite a bit.
Now you're talking Ricoh and Leica. Are you shooting film or are you shooting digital?
Digital. Film's too expensive, man. I went through a film phase, man, and it was just crazy amounts of money.
Yes.
Oh God, I think we've all been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like to shoot it every once in a while, but that's just what I'm feeling nice and masochistic.
I just want to punish myself.
Yeah. That's my what's the old monks that would beat themselves with that thorn?
Opus Dei, you mean?
Yeah, the Opus Dei. That's what I'm feeling like an Opus Dei member. I'll shoot film today.
Oh, God.
So I will say, though, the nice thing about shooting film is that you learn to be a little bit more conservative with what you want to spend your dollar per click on.
Yeah, there is a lot of discipline that goes to shooting film there, when you do that.
Yeah, and I've carried that over into my digital practice, if you will. So
yeah, that's good.
Yep. Latches on. Now you were talking about workshops and how you really enjoy teaching. When did you start doing workshops? When did you start offering this?
So I never really started off wanting to do workshops, but I was being asked to do them. And so I kind of, I actually turned a bunch down because I have no idea how a workshop works. So I did, I think in 2013, I took an Alex Webb workshop, mainly because I'm a big fan of Alex Webb, but also I wanted to see how a workshop was run. And so through taking Alex Webb's workshop, and this was in Miami at Miami Street Photography Festival, I basically learned, what to do and what not to do. And then so I felt a little bit more comfortable, and then I was asked to do a workshop in Tbilisi, Georgia with me and Richard Bram. And that was nice too, because Richard was able, because he had done them before, he was able to kind of guide me on it. But we kind of, we had plenty of conversation beforehand. And, I told him about the web workshop and what I felt worked and didn't work. And he was like totally in agreement. I think we adjusted it a little bit based on my experience with Alex Webb. And so we did this workshop in Tbilisi, I think it was 2014 together. And which was actually an amazing workshop because there's like 15 people in it and only one of them was a guy, which is quite the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Was this a street photography workshop?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was cool. And it's funny because I actually I just got a Facebook message from one of the students in that class who's wanting to submit to this year's Miami Street Photography Festival and was wondering if mobile phone photos were fine. And I said, yeah, we accept all kinds we don't delineate between what kind of camera that you use. It's just got to be a good photo. So deadline is October 1st, by the way.
Yes, October 1st. Everybody remember this.
So get your submissions in at miamistreetphotography.com. So.
Yep. And we'll be actually adding that link into the show notes as well. So if you are wanting to submit pictures for this judging and contest, go there and submit. What are the categories?
Oh, so there's 3 contests, if you will. There's a singles competition, which you can submit basically as many photos as you can pay for. And then there's this year is the international series, which is we're looking for a series of, I think it's 5 to 7 shots, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also, which we've been doing all along, which is this Miami photo series, which is really for the people in Miami, South Florida, who have a project or have done something. And so it's kind of like a way to tie in the locals who are into photography there.
Oh, okay, great. And you're a judge, Chris, in this?
No, I'm not a judge.
Oh, you're not a judge?
No,
okay.
I got I was a finalist the very first year. I think the second year as a finalist. The third year I got asked to be a judge. The fourth year as a presenter. The fifth year as a judge. And then they brought me on board, and now I'm like one of the team members. So I work in the back end and like selecting speakers, doing some marketing stuff. Whenever you get the emails from Miami Street Photography Festival, they're from me. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm filling you up with your spam inbox.
Hey, bring it. Yeah, we're all about some shameless promotions when it comes to StreetPX.
That's right.
Just throw it out there.
So basically, it's actually been a great experience. So the team, just so you know and other people know, is this guy Juan Race. He's he's one of the founders. And then there is Veronica, and she was one of the original folks as well. And then I got asked to come on board by Juan, and then we asked Lauren Wells from New York to help as well. So, it's what's also interesting too. You see this debate in street photography, how there's not an equal representation of men or women in, these contests or festivals. But honestly, Miami's been pretty equal the entire time. Oh, and there's another team member, Lynn. So there's 3 women and 2 men involved. So,
okay.
So
that is fantastic.
Yeah. So, and that just happened organically, really.
Yes. No pressure. No, like it just, yeah. Yeah, that's great that it even happened that way. Now, I mean, that's kind of where it's nice to see street photography changing in that regard, evolving. Even where would you say you see it as today, like street photography compared to where it was when you first started?
Well, there's a lot more people using the street photography hashtag, that's for sure. And
that's for sure.
And there's a lot of I don't know. I mean, it's sort of it's exploded. Part of me wonders though if it's reached its maximum peak. But it's definitely exploded. And what's interesting is I'm always finding out about kind of new circles of folks. So there's this international street photography account on Instagram that has like 1.2 million followers, and that's really done by people who are outside of the street photography networks that we're all involved in. So it's really, it's really surprising to see these other little pockets of people that have formed these groups and have, created their own thing too, which is kind of nice. But at the same time, I know this year, and I think submissions have been down for some of these festivals, and also attendance may have been down for some, from what I've heard. But it makes me wonder, is there too many street photography festivals? And I think there probably are at this point. There seems to be one for like every country somewhere. And then the other thing too is over the years I've been doing it, I've seen a lot of people who submit their photos, submit like the same series to other contests and win. And I wonder if that archive of like people's best work has kind of been depleted now. And so it's sort of like I'm just kind of wondering if we've plateaued now, or maybe it's just a lull before a bigger storm. Who knows?
Now, talking about workshops, you have a workshop coming up.
Yes, I am doing a workshop in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, during Day of the Dead, October 29th through November 4th. And the idea is to basically do a workshop, but this will be a little different than ones I've done in the past. Mostly I've just done day photography workshops, but because we'll be there at night and a lot of stuff happens at Day of the Dead at night, there'll be a special focus on using flash for street photography at night. So that's something that I've done a lot of stuff with, flash at night. So I'm really looking forward to that, because to me, they're two very distinct approaches. So, and for me, actually, personally, I'm always like shooting color during the day, but at night, I just keep everything black and white, mainly because I can't see color as cues in night, so I'm always thinking about the importance of color during the day, but when it's at night, it's like I can't tell, is that red or purple or whatever. If it's a dark room, I have no idea. So occasionally a photo will work in color, but color is not in my mind as a consideration. So and so the workshop will so currently, actually, since I last talked to you, Casper, I believe I was a little worried about, is this even going to happen? But the workshop is now more than half full. I think we've got 3 or 4 slots left open. So I strongly recommend if people are interested, they sign up for it. But so basically the first, even prior to the workshop, what I do is I kind of get a feel for people's work. I look at their online portfolios. I also send out like a reading list and kind of how to prepare. And then when we arrived, the first thing I do is kind of just give a historical overview of street photography, because I feel it's actually very important to know your history in this genre. And then I get into a section on like how to critique the photo, because that's actually extremely important. A lot of people really don't know what they're looking at. And then I go into basically all the cliches, as really a starting point for people, like so they can see like, what juxtaposition is, or what layering is, or how to work with light and shadow, to ideally, give them some inspiration, but put a name on these things so they know what to look for when they go out in the street. And then I cut them loose. They can, if they have to have a project, they can pick one for themselves if they want to do that, or they can try to focus on, hey, I'm just going to work on juxtapositions, but I don't want to really peg somebody into a commitment to something. Because it often can be very limiting or hard for people in workshops. That's one of the things Alex Webb did, is like everyone, you pick your area that you're going to shoot, or your subject matter, and then you stick with it. And that's it's really hard to do when you're in a new city in another place. So this one guy picked doing when we were in Miami, picked going to Overton, which is a really bad area, and basically he was like harassed every day. It wasn't. It was like he feared for his life at some point of it. And I'm like, I don't want to have anybody have to be committed to putting themselves in a dangerous situation because they picked that. And I didn't know what Overton was. So, or somebody, so it's like, it's more about, it's really more about trying to, it's not a workshop about photojournalism or working a project or a specific theme. It's really one about learning how to shoot, to get a good picture that speaks to your own style, or helps to develop your own vision and what you're, kind of comfortable with, and how to improve upon that and make it better. So that's really, I'm trying to work within the individual's natural inclination towards what they want to shoot, and I want to guide them to like, hey, did you think about this? Or have you checked out the work of so-and-so that's kind of similar? It's like, check that out, study that, and, try to further, their own vision.
Mm-hmm. And you couldn't have chose a better subject, or at least a celebration category to go along with it. With the Day of the Dead, the amount of photography, or at least interesting characters, will be endless.
Yeah. It's going to, it's really a great opportunity for just anything to happen, right? So, it's not like being dropped in the middle of, let's say, San Francisco, and not knowing where to go and what to shoot. It's like, hey, you've got this focus, which is Day of the Dead. Let's try to make something creative and different kinds of photos than what we've all seen before out of Day of the Dead stuff. So it's a good anchor, if you will, for having something to shoot. But then at the same time, you don't have to shoot Day of the Dead stuff. You can focus on small towns outside of San Miguel or what have you,
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because that's true. A lot of people get so wrapped up in the celebration, or at least the element of what's happening around them at the time, and they forget to look around, look up, look down, look beyond what's obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. That's important, because that is a true creative experience doing that.
Yeah.
You adapt. Yeah. I think it's very important to do it that way.
So then the idea is like, so we go out and shoot that. So like you go out, so after the lecture, the opening day, then everyone goes out and shoots, and then they come back the next morning with their selections of like their A's and B's, and really no more than 10 photos. That was the one drawback of the web workshop. You had people coming in with 60 photos, and you were just like sitting there going,
"Oh my God!"
So that'll take you a month to review.
You got to do it. You got to have a limit, and so. But anyway, but then you discuss the strengths of the photos, or the weaknesses, or the what ifs, or the shoulda, woulda, coulda part of that stuff. With everybody in the room, and other people can chime in, and then you just go out and do it again, and then And then towards the end, we get together and let's say, let's try to sequence or put these together into something. And then we'll do, a group slideshow at the end of the last night dinner thing. So everyone gets in the room and gets to see everyone else's work. And then, ultimately we'll put that stuff on the site if they're willing, of course. And yeah, and then everyone hopefully goes away from this immersive experience having learned something about themselves, about their photography, and what they like to shoot and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
and experience something they may never have an opportunity otherwise to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that sounds awesome. What's the best link people can go to sign up and get more information?
I believe it's mspfworkshops.com. Let me double check that.
So this is in relation with Miami Street Photography Festival?
Yes, it's kind of an offshoot.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so mspfworkshops.com.
Fantastic. And just like before, we'll also add that link into the show notes. And that way we can make sure that everybody has the right place to go. So if you're driving in your car on the way to work, don't worry about trying to write this down. Save your wreck and save your injuries for later.
Yes, please.
Yes. Don't let StreetPX be the cause of your vehicular accident. So yes, on that note, Jim, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Jim to ask our final question that we ask everybody.
Well, this is something like Casper said, we ask everybody at the end of the show. If you could choose a particular time or place within the advent of photography to shoot, where and when would you be? Kind of an awkwardly phrased, but yeah.
If you could shoot at any time and place, where would it be?
Yeah, since the invention of the camera, right?
Right.
Yeah, since the advent of the camera.
So
right.
really between the 19th and 20th centuries here.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Dinosaurs would be cool, but no, not in this case.
Geez,
and
man.
we've gone there too.
Honestly, I don't know. Work that that really had a big impact on me was the Kudelka work for the invasion of Prague. I would have actually have liked to been right next to Kudelka watching him work that situation, because he must have had the biggest balls possible, man. Because he's taking photos, climbing on top of tanks, getting into like the Russians' faces. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean, the danger that he put his life into. And honestly, I don't, I'd love to have a camera with me at the time, but really it would have been to just watch how he worked and manage that situation, because it's really like, it's really crazy, and it took some big balls to get that, to do that, So that's the point in time that I would like to just drop in and really be a fly on a wall and just watch how that all went down.
Yeah. Sort of like being in a mosh pit, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just with bullets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. And that's a first. That's a truly original answer that we've had in near 70 episodes now. So no, that's good. That's good. So just want to put it out there. Is there anybody or any organization that you want to give a shout out to?
In terms of what, to help promote them or something, or
promote them? You want to show some love to? I think are you still with part of Strata?
Oh well, we didn't talk about that, but Strata is essentially like we
can add it in.
It's Strata is basically no more. I mean, it's always Strata's dead, Strata's alive, Strata's dead. But everybody that that formed that collective, it was a lot of collectives were like like international, right? We were really kind of DC based, and basically over time people and not that long of a time, over a period of like 2.5 years, people just had other priorities or other interests, and there's really some of those folks are still like actively shooting, but most, like a lot of the other half really aren't. Some I have no idea what they're up to. But at the time it was really super beneficial, because I just kind of got picked to be part of that off of my Flickr feed. because I didn't really know any photographers in DC. I was really kind of just by myself. And so it was really nice, getting to meet all of these folks. And it's actually been really rewarding and enriching even to this day now, because a lot of the friends and people in the art photo world in DC I met through by being in Strata. And then we do critiques and whatnot. But with that said, I mean, it really, being part of Strata really helped launch me, I think, in the broader photography world. It also gave us the strength to do exhibits and stuff, because no one would want to exhibit any of us individually, but they were all, intrigued about, a collective of street photographers in DC. Photo Week DC was like, let's, you guys can have a wall this year, or some other like kind of rebel art thing going on. I'll give a shout out to Brandon from No Kings Collective, which is an artist group in DC. They're not photography based. They're more like kind of urban culture art, like graffiti art, hip hop culture art, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But he does a lot of great stuff in DC, and over time, and occasionally he'll include photography stuff in his stuff, which is really nice. Because it takes photography out of its little niche, and he then throws it into sort of this broader space. But he sees ties between the street photography that we were doing at Strata, or me, with kind of the same kind of street art that's going on. So he's really been kind of instrumental in DC in helping build people's careers and stuff, and he's definitely helped out mine. So yeah, good. No Kings Collective, check it out. They do good stuff.
Perfect.
And that's surprising, because I never thought that would come off the top of my head like it did. But but I want to give some props to someone who's not a photographer here, but who's doing stuff for the art scene in general, which is great.
Right.
No, that's great. Yeah, no, I'm glad you did that, because, you got to give love to artists, creatives of all forms and fashion. So with that said, go ahead and throw out your a link where people can find out more about your work and see your imagery.
Oh, sure. So my just kind of photo diary street photography site is primarily suspectdevice.net. It's a Tumblr account. I don't know if anybody still uses Tumblr, but I do. And there's a lot of other people on there that use it. So that if street photography singles and basically kind of what I'm up to gets posted on there. Then I have an Instagram site called I'm at gratuity_included. And those are that's a project, and that's just basically like the party lives of millennials. It's all nighttime, crazy party, lewd kind of photos,
I took a look at that. You're right.
Yeah, the ones that touch the lizard part of your brain.
Yeah,
there it is.
and then my serious portfolio site is suspect.culturalspot.org, which is I got invited to. That's actually this Google Museum project thing, and they say they're going to shut it down soon. But anyway, that's where my portfolio site is, and there you'll see kind of like like street photography projects and documentary projects that I've done over the years. And that's rarely, it's updated maybe once or twice a year with a new project or something, but that's really kind of like the showcase of stuff that I've done. But for just regular posting, the Instagram account or the Tumblr. And I rarely post photos on Facebook. Occasionally I do, but Facebook I probably
Instagram is the imagery area.
Yeah, but a lot of people do really well posting images on Facebook. So
True. Well, cool. I appreciate that. And Jim, where can we find out more information about your work?
As always, JimWatkinsPhoto.com. And not a whole lot of street photography going on there recently, but I'll get back into it. And you'll see all the links to all my social platforms on that website.
Fantastic.
And you can find out more. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing, because I know we hung out. We never talked about how we hung out in San Francisco about a month ago. But I just started looking at the work that I did in San Francisco when I was out with you, and then out on my own or out with Ken Walton. And I just started posting that stuff on my Tumblr, so you can see some of my recent stuff from San Francisco there.
Yeah, I caught some of that too. Nice.
Fantastic. So to all of our local listeners here in the Bay Area, definitely go. You're going to see some familiar locations and some really great work. I had a chance to watch Chris in action, and you're going to want to see these images. You definitely need to go.
Yeah, what's that corner called? The Ross Corner?
Ross Corner.
Yeah.
And a lot of Bay Area photographers just shouted out. So
4th and Market.
there it is.
I spent a lot of time there.
Yes, you do. There's a lot of gravity to that corner. It's just because there's just thousands of people that pass by it all throughout the day.
Yeah, and there's a lot of characters. And the light is beautiful, especially around like 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Yeah, it's a great place to shoot. We have a place like that in DC, Chinatown, 7th and H. Very similar.
Hey, I'm going to be in DC at the end of this year. I'm going to check that place out.
Yeah, that's a great place to shoot, man.
7th and
If you got nothing
okay.
to do, you're bored and want to go out and shoot, you can't get any better than that location.
All right.
There you go,
check
folks.
It out.
Dropping down some locations for you while you're out and about.
I'm writing it down now.
Awesome. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close it up. And you can find out more information about me at recasper.com. All of my photos, blog posts, workshops, all that fun stuff. But above all, go and take a look at StreetPX.com. That's going to be the location for all of our past episodes, all of our future blog posts, news, what's happening. There's also going to be links in our show notes for this episode for not only the workshop, but as well as more of Chris's work. And you'll also find links to our series of apparel, because that's how we roll, with a number of T-shirts that are all inspired by photography, street photography, classic vintage cameras, whatnot. You can find it there. And if you're loving the show, if you're looking forward to another great season, then we also would appreciate all of the reviews. Gold stars are like currency for us. So go head to iTunes or iHeartRadio or Spotify or wherever your place of choice is at, and show us some love. Throw some words our way. That helps us get into more ears out there and expand the StreetPX Nation. So thank you all for listening to the show, and thank you, Chris, for coming on.
Yes, no, thanks for having me, guys. This has been awesome.
Bam, our pleasure.
Sweet. All right, folks, and we will talk at you again in 2 weeks. Cheers.
See ya.